one fund, on point for today, the expert to talk about it. Welcome to the ETF of the Week. Yes, this is the ETF of the Week, where we examine trending, new, newsworthy, unique, and intriguing exchange-traded funds with Todd Rosenbluth, the head of research at VettaFi. And at VettaFi.com, you'll find all the tools you need to be a savvy and smart investor in ETFs. By the way, VettaFi is the organizer of Exchange. It's the largest ETF conference that's geared towards financial advisors. It's being held March 23rd through March the 26th in Las Vegas. And if you stay tuned after Todd and I finish up here, well, there's a short message with more information for you about Exchange. Todd Rosenbluth, it's great to chat with you again.
It's great to be back.
Your ETF of the week is
the CoinShares Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners ETF, WGMI.
WGMI, the CoinShares Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners ETF. Wow, interesting pick, Todd, because, well, we have to kind of learn a little bit about how this fund is going to be used, but also I'll point out, and we'll talk more about it in a moment, interesting timing on this. So this fund, Bitcoin miners versus, well, they're not physical Bitcoins, but Bitcoin funds. Why are you going in this direction now?
Well, I remember we about a year ago talked about the first spot Bitcoin ETFs that came to market, and they were tremendously successful. They performed well. They gathered assets. We skipped past the Bitcoin mining space, and I regret that we did so. This is an equity ETF that owns companies that are supportive of Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency ecosystem. What we're hearing from advisors at VettaFi is that they want exposure to the crypto space and to Bitcoin, but they prefer an equity vehicle. In fact, either they can't invest directly in a Bitcoin ETF, it's not approved on their platform, or they just feel more comfortable getting exposure to the equity marketplace. And so this CoinShares ETF gives them the ability to do so. It's actively managed, it's diversified, it gives you exposure to a number of companies you don't otherwise have within your broader portfolio that are outside of the main indices. And yes, we'll come into the timing of it, but this has certainly been a year of crypto in focus and Bitcoin in focus under the new presidential administration. It's been more volatile this year on the way down as opposed to just on the way up. But we think now is a good time for folks to be considering this equity ETF.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is this fund is down about 12, 13, 15% as we talk about it year to date. But in 2023, this fund was up 304%. And by the way, in the digital assets category, that didn't make it all the way to the top. That just made it the top 5%. So if you're looking at the miners versus holding the crypto and the crypto funds, and as you pointed out, for some companies or some investors, it's how they want to invest because they don't want to hold the digital asset or they can't hold the digital asset. But do you expect that Bitcoin miners to Bitcoin would be the way gold miners are to gold?
So I think of it that way. It's equity exposure that's connected to the underlying asset, in this case, Bitcoin as opposed to gold. This is a more volatile investment than most of folks' equity exposure. You mentioned how strong it performed a couple of years ago, and it's down to start this year. There's going to be volatility. We'll talk through perhaps how this can fit into a risk-on oriented portfolio. But yes, if you think about the ecosystem and what is needed for more Bitcoin, we need mining for that. And again, I'm not going to get technical. I can't get technical. I think this is just now a good time to take a closer look. And yes, it has performed very well until it's pulled back. Is now a buying opportunity? Should you wait a little bit more? I'm not sure about that. I'm not going to make a tactical short-term call on this, other than this is an ETF that should be on the radar for many investors.
Gold versus gold miners both perform like gold. They have different characteristics, and there's different reasons why you want to own the miners versus the precious metal. But in this case, given what you were saying about some money managers not being able to invest in crypto, but wanting to do this. Is this play a bit like saying, I don't want the AI companies, I want to be AI adjacent. I don't want the crypto, I want to be crypto adjacent. So rather than owning the metal, rather than being the one who's pursuing the physical or the sort of physical in the case of Bitcoin asset, I want to be providing picks and shovels. So you're investing in the picks and shovels companies? Is this that kind of a play? The way some people are currently saying, hey, you want AI, but you don't want to get in with the real volatility, go after the companies that are adjacent, the power providers and the rest?
For folks that are going to consider this ETF, and I think it's worthy of consideration, you have to be a believer in that there's going to be greater adoption for Bitcoin. The use case is going to go up. The environment is going to be more favorable from a regulatory standpoint. All those things are catalysts for the Bitcoin mining space, not just Bitcoin itself. What you get is companies, actual companies that are behind this, that have revenue, that have hopefully earnings that you can do valuation on, as opposed to Bitcoin itself, which is a little bit harder to be able to do. And what we're finding is some folks are thinking of this, as they should, as a thematic ETF. And we've talked about some other thematic ETFs. You mentioned artificial intelligence. There's robotics, there's healthcare technology, clean energy, what have you. This is a thematic ETF that could go into the growth part of your equity portfolio, be a slice of it, obviously getting the benefits of diversification, not only within the ETF, WGMI, but within your broader portfolio, because that level of volatility that you talked about is probably too much to have a significant stake in one thematic strategy.
Given where you think it fits into a portfolio, but also let's take it away from those folks who are going to be buying it because they can't own crypto. Would you own this fund looking at Bitcoin miners along with or aside from a Bitcoin fund?
If you pulled up the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which has a long enough history, more than just over a year, you'd be able to see the differences behind the ETF that is tied to Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mining space. And I would, again, equate it to what we see with gold and gold mining. But Bitcoin in general can be a diversifier within a portfolio the same way that this can, but this is going to perform much more like an equity strategy, a risk-on equity strategy, than Bitcoin itself. There's connections, but it isn't equal in parity from one another.
That being the case, and you've made it clear, this is not a timing play. But if we look at the 200-day moving average, well, for the last year, this fund, WGMI, CoinShares Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners, has been above its 200-day moving average almost all the time, until about a week before we recorded this, at which point it got hammered and is now well below its 200-day moving average. So you said this might be a buying opportunity. As it gets knocked down, maybe it's a chance to get in at a bit of a discount. At the same point, with something like this, do you like to layer on? I know you're not necessarily a trend follower, but you have conflicting signals.
Yeah, you do. And again, I'm not a trend follower. If you believe in trend following as part of your approach to investing, then maybe you want to wait on this if the signals are not supportive. But if you believe in cryptocurrency, if you believe in Bitcoin, if you believe that the growth is still there, we saw Bitcoin, the ecosystem, we've seen growth fourfold in the last 4 years, not the price, but the amount of money that is being tied to this industry growing fourfold. If you believe in that long-term approach, then this ETF WGMI is worth having on your radar. It's okay to buy something that's selling at a discount if you have confidence in the longer-term fundamentals.
And in this case, the confidence is placed in the CoinShares Valkyrie Bitcoin Miners ETF, WGMI, the ETF of the week from Todd Rosenbluth at VettaFi. Todd, great stuff as always. See you again next week.
I'll see you next week, Chuck.
The ETF of the week is a joint production of VettaFi and Moneylife with Chuck Jaffe. And I am Chuck Jaffe, and I'd love it if you check out my hour-long weekday show at MoneyLifeShow.com or by searching for it wherever you find great podcasts. Now, if you're searching for information on your next great ETF, look no further than VettaFi, where they have all the tools you need at VettaFi.com to help yourself out and make yourself a better investor. They're on X at Vetta_Fi, and Todd Rosenbluth, head of research, my guest, he's on X too, at Todd Rosenbluth. The ETF of the week is here for you every Thursday. Make sure you don't miss an episode by following along on your favorite podcast app. We'll be back with another great ETF to talk about with you next week. But until then, happy investing, everybody.
Stuck in the same patterns and routines? Trying to take your practice to the next level? You need to register for the Exchange Conference. In March 2025, industry experts will be gathering in Las Vegas to share actionable information, network, and learn the latest innovations in practice management. Invest in your greatest asset, yourself, by registering at exchangeetf.com today.